Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Brawley City Council and successor agency, the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency regular meeting today on Tuesday, July 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. And we are not meeting in our city council chambers. We are meeting by using the Zoom system. And the meeting can be accessed at www.facebook.com or the hub at Brawley EOC. And we'll go ahead and roll call shows all of us are present. And before we move on to our meeting, I did want to ask for a moment of silence for all of the COVID deaths that we've had in the world and nationally, and especially in Imperial County. And I also wanted to dedicate this moment of silence to two local residents that had tragic deaths this past week. One of them, Nathan Casares, and the other one, Joseph Radcliffe. They both had unfortunate tragic deaths this past week. So we could do one moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and move on to our agenda for today. And our first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
So moved. Sam.
Okay.
Second, Luke.
Okay, moved by Council Member Sam Couchman and seconded by Council Member George Nava. All those in favor?
No, actually, the second was Luke Canby.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, seconded by Luke Hamby.
It must be the hair.
Mayor Pro Tem Luke Hamby. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you.
Aye.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to public appearances and comments. This is a time for the public to address the council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. Is there anyone there, Rosanna, for public comments?
There are no members of the public present in the council chambers, nor did we receive any written comments prior to this evening's public meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda. There are quite a few items on the consent agenda. Resolutions for the community facilities district, all of our different parks and residences. So did everyone get an opportunity to review those, or does anyone have any questions? I understand we have a representative here. If anyone has any questions or would like to pull any of those from the agenda. If not, I'll look for an approval.
This is George. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. This is Sam.
Okay. Motion by Council Member George Nava, seconded by Council Member Sam Couchman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 4 on our agenda. The public hearing for the state administered CDBG CV application. And I understand that we're going to continue this item. Is that correct, Rosanna?
Yes, we did publish a public hearing notice relative to tonight's meeting. Since that publication, the topic has continued to evolve, and staff and I are hoping to get some feedback from the council as we prepare for the next meeting date in August and look to position to use those funds among eligible recipients. So if it is the council's wish at this time, I can walk through what some of those resources are and some of the guidelines that have been published that might be of interest to the council.
Yes, can you go ahead and cover that briefly, please? Thank
Sure.
you.
So CARES funding has been disseminated to entitlement and non-entitlement cities in California using the Housing and Community Development Department Community Development Block Grant configuration as a mechanism. And the city's portion for CARES funding hovers around 130 to 135,000. We've also learned along the way that we may have the chance to leverage some of the CARES funding with program income sources that we've accumulated based on loan payments for first-time homebuyers and owner-occupied residential rehab projects that the city has financed through the years with help from HCD. Our current balance for program income is an estimated $350,000. So combined, we have just shy of $500,000 to assist with addressing activities that are deemed eligible by HCD. The city of Brawley did join with other non-entitlement cities in the Valley to meet last week to discuss the guidelines. And there are two key areas that, based on prior comments received from the council, I think there may be a match for interest and need in the city of Brawley. There are two kind of distinct areas. CDBG has a focus on specific target populations, and council may recall in the past, we've worked with those target populations to deploy the resources for eligible improvements. So Hinojosa Park, for instance, had ADA improvements. Anything that addresses the disabled, physically disabled community typically is a match for the target population. Senior citizens are also a target population for this funding, and that's how we replaced the roof at the center a couple of years ago. So there's very specific definitions as to how these funds could be used, and the two areas that have emerged based on the published guidelines and where council has expressed interest on prior occasions are in the senior citizen realm and in the small business owner realm. And these two areas, we would need to propose and apply for the use of these funds in ways that fit within the parameters of funding. So on the small business front, these funds would be allowed for up to a $10,000 forgivable loan for small businesses that had to lay off or reduce hours of employees that used to be a part of their operation. And there are obligations to bring those folks back, demonstrate that they've been retained for a period of time, and provided they meet the performance objectives, the $10,000 would be forgiven. So that's one really kind of large, significant area where we could deploy these resources. The other area that's pretty different from maybe business assistance, it's at the consumer level for a target population, which is senior citizens. And this funding would allow for the city to provide up to a maximum of 90 days retro utility assistance or 90 days forward advance utility assistance. The City Council has received feedback from our senior citizen population through the years requesting rate relief similar to what IID offers to its consumers. Our challenge has always been as a city that enterprise funds can't be adapted to based on who the consumer is. We can only be able to use general fund dollars, are very, very restricted to provide that type of offset. So we have not historically offered a senior citizen discount, but this could provide an opportunity for 90 days of relief. The downside would be that the normal charge for utilities on a going forward basis would resume after the 90-day period. So it's really just a temporary relief, not a permanent one. What staff is hoping to get is a little bit of feedback from the council as we begin to prepare for the August action item. What we'd love to hear is whether you would like the majority of the resources to be oriented towards small business assistance, or if you preferred instead that we work on the senior citizen front, or if you want to see a blend, that's something that we could maybe fashion as well and bring to you for action at the next meeting.
Okay. Any questions from council? When would this funding, when do we anticipate that the funding would actually be available for distribution?
Much depends on the ability of the businesses to get through the certification process, which is kind of another significant hurdle. The county has been of incredible assistance to local agencies in this area as we've all tried to get answers from the state on what steps would be necessary to meet the criteria for award of the funds to businesses. And we have yet to receive the final written answer. If it is a conventional method, it can take up to 90 days to achieve all dimensions of the certification process for businesses.
Can I interject some comments and thoughts? If we can do something that's rapid, I'd be interested. But making people wait 90 days right now is just, I mean, that is forever. I mean, 90 days is a long time. Even 2 weeks, 3 weeks is a long time at this point. Is there anything we can do at the council level to maybe expedite the process just to where it's a very simple request? They meet whatever objectives, or do we have to abide by all the state requirements?
We are asking relief as small agencies. One of, I think, the greatest challenges with CDBG funds is there are many, many strings attached. And if we don't complete the process in the format that they define, we are subject to return of the funds. So we are pushing everywhere we can. And if there are other methods that might be available, we'll definitely work with our electeds to help push that envelope. A number of months ago, we actually at the staff level pursued that dialogue because, you know, obviously this, even from that point to now, has been an extended period of time.
Roseanne, Madam Mayor, I have a question, Donnie.
Yes.
If we were talking about a blend, just again, you may have covered this, or forgive me if you already covered this and kind of the frame up again. But if we do go with kind of a blended approach, is it important that obviously all of that is more or less solidified up front before we kind of tap into this? In other words, we have to decide that more or less now what the approach will be for the use of those funds?
The public hearing will be when that will receive input and ideas from not only council, but the public at large. What we're going to have to navigate our way through is if we're going to use program income and the CARES amount, we likely have to address those two pots of funds in the public hearing notices. So,
okay.
And then, you know, there's a myriad of other activities that the guidelines allow for, but they primarily kind of rest in the homeless assistance realm. And just based on the types of dialogue that's been occurring among the council, it seems to me that there's been just a lot of consensus around trying to figure out how local businesses can get the support they need to be successful in the context of COVID. So it doesn't have to be decided today, just trying to figure out where the group is gelling so that the action item, as we ramp up, we have the guidance that we're on the right track, or that you would prefer it to really go towards businesses, or, you know, whichever it is.
I just want to be clear on this. Yeah, maybe just at least to voice myself. It really dovetails off of what Councilmember Nava said. I think right now there are I'm not saying there's, endless programs out there, but there are some pretty, quick to fund business loan and grant programs out there. As a matter of fact, there's probably more than ever right now. And then there's a potential for another stimulus bill to work its way through at the federal level. So again, my inclination is to put someone through a CDBG process, 90 days, potentially plus. It's one of those situations where it might be better directed at some of the other much needed areas where we can kind of work at a little bit more of the government, the speed of government and better invest those funds. So it has nothing to do with not wanting to help our bay. Of course we do. I don't know if this is the best program for business, and as a small business owner myself, I would likely not pursue something that would take that long and be that difficult. I think even SBA lending, has had that reputation a little bit, and that's changed, I think, right now with COVID. So anyways, I'm just putting that out just as, a thought as we're looking at this.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think, that's a big disappointment for it to take that long, the process to take that long. And I don't know if they qualify for something else, would that preclude them from getting this money? Because maybe there's a business that has gotten, as an example, an SBA loan, but they can apply for this one also, and it'll kick in, later on, and they'll still need the assistance. As long as they're not precluded from applying for this program if they've already qualified for a different program. I don't know if that's criteria or not. So until we look at all the criteria, I guess.
If I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
As you recall, we've gone through some job training type programs before, some areas where you have to retain employees in order to receive certain funding and everything. When you were at EDD, when I was at the county, one of the problems that exists is follow-up. And then the other problem that exists is if there's not a recovery in a quick enough amount of time, or the business doesn't recover, then there's some question about the expenditure of the money, and then it doesn't become a grant, it becomes having to be paid back and all of those types of things. So there are some long-term impacts that you have when you're trying to run a program like that. I think in this term, for the amount of money that we're talking about, and for the time period that we're talking about and the time that it takes, we may be better served, and I agree kind of with Donnie and George, that we might be better served looking at the senior program or something like that. It's a little easier to follow up, a little bit quicker to get out there, and we can have some pretty well-defined results. Whereas with business, it may be much different. And not that I don't want to help business. I think there's a lot of programs out there that are helping or attempting to help them right now. But I think in terms of this program, it's such a limited amount of money and such a long period of time in order to access. I would think that maybe it's better that we look at other avenues for it. That's all.
And what do you anticipate the utility assistance program how long would it take us to get that going?
Really, it wouldn't be, again, the cities, we don't get to define the timetable for HCD. They tell us when we get through clearing the conditions of approval. So the way utility billing relief functions is based on water, sewer, gas, power, any number of critical utilities. They are eligible for utility assistance if the customer meets the criteria for eligibility. So there's a certification process for that as well. All of these national objectives and target populations come with certification requirements. The upside of the utilities is obviously the city would have a chance to recover any losses that it may have experienced as a result of COVID, interruptions to income that customers may have faced, and it provides for other utilities as well for the retro payments or the go forward and assurance that at least 90 days of assistance is available.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll have input from the public for the August 4th public hearing. So maybe we'll find out what the public wants.
That sounds
good. Okay. Thank you, Rosanna. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our regular business. And we have an update on the City of Brawley declaration of local emergency as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And do we have Fire Chief Mike York available? There he is. Hi, Chief. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Checking my audio. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, and happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Update on our current situation with the COVID-19 within the Imperial County. I'll begin with the most recent case counts as provided by Imperial County Department of Public Health. Imperial County's at this time has tested a total of 41,876 people. Our testing has really increased in the last several weeks. We've had a total positive count in the Imperial County of 8,606. 925 of those remain active today. Within our hospital, we have 95 current hospitalized, 20 of which are in ICU. We are utilizing a small portion of our surge capacity, 4 out of the 23 beds. And unfortunately, we're using 19 out of our 48 available ventilators. Our out-of-county transfers, as of the last report, was over 500. I received a report today from our local EMS agency that our out-of-county transfers have decreased. They've tapered off. That's a result of both of our hospitals increasing their capacity, as well as just the acuity of the patients have been changed. Our alternative care site that's located at IVC, as of today, has treated 177 patients, and they're saying that the average length of stay is about 3 days for each one of those patients. So basically, we've calculated up 500 bed days for the hospital have been saved by having that alternative care site in service. As of today, its current census is only 7, which is good news. In Imperial County, we have recorded 7,518 people have recovered. Unfortunately, our most recent counts indicate that 163 persons have passed due to COVID-19. The 70 to 79 age group still remains the most affected. The Imperial County dashboard has recently had an update, so it doesn't show just the cases, the positive cases by zip code. It also shows some other information. And for the 922 zip code, we've had a total of 1,457 positives, and 18 of the county deaths have originated from our locality. For our neighbors, always give the update for Mexicali, Baja California. Their numbers have been increasing steadily. As of today, they've recorded 6,421 positives. They've had 1,130 deaths, 1,130 deaths. So their mortality rate is quite high. Those numbers are also a reflection of their testing capacities not being quite the way ours are in terms of population. An important figure that I've added this week is our neighbors to the east in Yuma County. As you guys know, our Imperial County population is about 180,000. Yuma County is about 213,000. Their numbers are very similar to ours, where they've tested 47,000 people. They've had 9,600 confirmed and 198 deaths. So as a population count, they're very similar in numbers. On the roadmap to recovery, our goal is less than 8% persons tested to persons positive on a 7-day average. On my last report on 7/7, we were at 17.4%. As of our most recent numbers, we're still at 17.68. So actually a little bit of increase, but essentially the same levels. For Brawley, our local response, since March, we've responded to 111 calls for service that were COVID related. 49 of those have been confirmed as COVID positive. Last update, we did have quite a bit of information to share regarding our local mortuary. We've had some movement on that. Our morgue capacity within the county has been increased due to Imperial County Sheriff's Department increasing their capacity at their facility, as well as the state lending storage facilities, storage units for our local mortuary. And while their census remains high, they've gotten ahead of the situation, so it's not so as emergent as it was. Our skilled nursing facilities, as we have one in the city of Brawley, has been the focus of much conversation due to their elderly and very vulnerable populations. It's being monitored quite closely. Personal protective equipment has been dedicated to those facilities. As always, we're continuing cooperating with local, state, and federal partners. City of Brawley is still receiving PPE allotments, personal protective equipment allotments. We're receiving allotments for cleaning and disinfecting supplies, facial coverings, etc. And just working internally and externally with all of our stakeholders to continue to monitor, respond, and develop plans for the future. I did receive some communication that the CEO of Pioneers Memorial Healthcare District, Mr. Larry Lewis, has reached out, and he is interested in providing an update to the City Council at our next regular City Council meeting. We will continue to communicate with them and place that on agenda if appropriate. That is the end of my report. If there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council or staff? No?
Nope. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Our next item on the agenda is approve resolution number 2020, resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley appointing 3 members to fill vacancies on the Brawley Airport Commission. And we have the backup on pages 242 through 246. And we have
Madam Mayor, unless there's discussion to be had, this is just a motion to move forward with filling vacancies, correct?
yes, and there's 3 that are currently serving, and they have all responded that they're interested in reappointment.
Okay.
And that was Mr. Floyd, Mr. Osterkamp, and Mr. Kelly.
Right. I move that we appoint the 3 members to fill the vacancies on the Brawley Airport Commission.
I will
Reappoint.
second, Donnie.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Couchman and a second by Councilmember Wharton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Congratulations to the 3 gentlemen on their interest to continue serving on our Brawley Planning Committee, on our Brawley, Brawley
Airport Commission.
Airport Commission. Thank you. Okay, then we're going to move on to the next item, which is the approval of resolution number 2020, resolution of City Council of the Brawley, California, Brawley appointing 2 members of the Brawley Planning Commission. And the backup is on pages 247 to 251. And we received a request from George Marcus, who is currently serving, interested in reappointment. And we received an application from Ken Whitens, interested in serving. And we received interest from Mr. Hutchinson in reappointment. So we have 2 members, 2 openings, and there's 2 serving that are interested in continuing, and we have a new applicant, Ken Whitens. Any discussion?
Do we know what the rest of the commissioners, what their terms are when those are up?
The other commissioners?
Yes.
I don't. Rosanna, do you know?
Our city clerk will do a cross-check. I believe it's in the next 1 or 2 years. And just as a reminder, per council protocol, these appointments are typically at the pleasure of the mayor as a nomination. Just a matter of note.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
normally I think unless we have some issues with the currently serving members, we normally would reappoint. I don't really think maybe we should deviate from that at this point in time. I do know Mr. Whitens. I think he would be a fine planning commission member, but I hesitate to appoint him in place of somebody who's been actively serving on that commission. I would certainly recommend that he come forward in a future date when we're filling some vacant positions in any of the commissions or that we run here at the city. And I'm sure he would be a considered candidate. I mean, a very well considered candidate. So that would be my motion, I think, is to reappoint the existing members and encourage Mr. Whitens to apply for a future position either on the planning commission or another body that we appoint through the city.
I do have a question with
Thank you.
respect to, is there any concern with respect to the attendance of any of the applicants? Have they attended the meetings consistently?
Mr. Hutchinson, neither Mr. Hutchinson or Mr. Modkes have had chronic absences, which I think by ordinance is based on 3 consecutive absences. And our city clerk was able to pull the term ending dates, so I can reply to Mayor Pro Tem Hamby's question about those terms for remaining commissioners. Mr. Bambera and Mr. Goyal have term ending dates of 6/30/2021, and Mr. Tavares and Mr. Palacio, as well as Mr. Smith, have term ending dates of 6/30/2023.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, based on the discussion, I would go ahead and thank Mr. Whitens for his interest. And like Councilman Couchman indicated, we encourage Mr. Whitens to apply possibly for another, to serve on another commission or apply next year, possibly when there's another opening. But we thank you for your interest, and we'll go ahead and approve the appointment of Mr. Marcus and Mr. Hutchinson to continue their on the planning commission. So did you indicate then that we did not need a motion then, Rosanna, or we still need a motion in a second?
Yes.
We do. Okay. Okay. So Mr. Couchman, Councilman Couchman, you made a motion.
I made
for
the
it?
motion. I didn't know whether we needed it or not, but I made one.
You
I
did.
wasn't sure. I wasn't clear. Okay. Need a second then?
I'll make the second. This is George.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Congratulations. Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next resolution, number 2020, resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley for submission to the voters, a question relating to the extension of the City of Brawley utility users tax, and the submission to the voters a question relating to whether or not the office of city clerk should become an appointed office on the ballot for the general municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. And the backup is on pages 252 to 254.
Madam Mayor, at the
Yes.
direction of the council, some language has been brought forward and additional information gathered. Council previously provided some staff direction to take a look at modernizing certain dimensions of the utility user tax, which is scheduled to expire in May of 2022. So this would be the window for the utility user tax to make its way onto a ballot when local elections are also taking place, which is a requirement for a tax. Separate and apart from that topic, we have also got the topic of the city clerk. And just for organization purposes, they're shown together as one resolution that has been developed with the help of a consultant to the city and our city attorney. And so if the council wishes to do one without the other, we just amend the reso to just have one utility user tax or one item, one ballot measure considered, or the city clerk item if that's one which is desired to pursue. The current format for the city clerk position is elected. That office is got a term ending date, the elected office, also of 2022. So what this would provide is a window to take on that topic before an actual race is going on at the same time as the topic being considered. So if the council wanted to get clarification on this topic at this time, it could be presented in this window. At the last council meeting, there were, where this was agendized, there were also some questions trying to understand how the staff role, the full-time permanent staff role would be addressed if the office of the city clerk, that position became appointed. So basically, if the ballot measure were on a ballot and the voters chose to make it appointed as opposed to elected, what we would do in the budget process is eliminate the funded position. So it would become a role that the council would name who the city clerk is, and we basically develop a job description that encompasses both sets of responsibilities, even though in essence, as we practice it today, the elected and the staff position they function as one and the same. The difference would be that the council would have the ability, just like the council appoints or recruits, hires, and appoints a city manager or a city attorney, it would give the council the ability to do the same for the city clerk. If there are any further questions, either Mr. Smurden or I are here and available to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for council? We talked about it at our last meeting, so I think
Yes, we did.
got clarification on all of that, but okay. If there's no questions, then I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion. Ms. Sam.
Okay. Motion by Council Member Couchman.
And second by Donnie.
Okay, second by Council Member Wharton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any or abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 5E on our agenda. Discussion and potential action to adopt resolution number 2020, resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley approving the overall budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. So you have a big backup material on this, starting with page 255, and then you have a binder. We have a binder with all the budget information, and I believe Rosanna has some slides that she wants to present.
Yes.
It's all yours, Rosanna.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in the backup of the posted agenda is the overall 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. And what typically accompanies that large document organized by different types of fund revenues and expenditures is a budget memo. That budget memo is available to the public as well as the council and was electronically transmitted. What I've also got as content to provide to both the council and the viewing public this evening is a little over 12.5 slides to kind of give general overview, and the intent is not to quiet discussion. It's more of to give you a little bit of background on where we've been, what direction staff received as we prepared this budget, and some of how the changes would be implemented, both this first half of 2021 and the second half, which is a really kind of significant change from the first 6 months to the second 6 months based on our adapting to COVID-19 conditions. So with that, I do have a PowerPoint to walk you through, and I'm just gonna see here. Okay, and if I want to scroll. Okay. Okay, my apologies. Okay, so as we lay out the larger context for the discussion, there are quite a few funds that comprise the city's overall budget. The most important feature in the majority of them is that it's highly defined as to what they can be used for. The one exception to that is the general fund. The general fund is that pot of dollars that really are at the fingertips of local discretion, and they are really critical resources that help a city to prioritize and attribute resources to a variety of services that typically are outside of water, sewer, and streets. So while the budget in all of its length takes in a myriad of fund types, what we often center the discussion around is that pot of funds that are really locally controlled and are highly important to receive input from the council about, because they drive highest priority activities in a given fiscal year. So basically, with adoption of a budget, what occurs is that city staff are then provided the marching orders for a work plan that can span anywhere from 12 to 24 months. And what we try to do is be really mindful of what we can reasonably accomplish in a 12-month period, with an eye towards what future years might consider with future allocations of funds to accomplish those ends. So we have had a series of public meetings and a great deal of discussion among the council that began as early as February of this year. And before I get too far along, I really do want to give my compliments to the finance department in keeping us very much on track despite an incredible number of setbacks that we experienced with COVID. So we were off to a really strong start. In 2020, we had our mid-year budget review. We were performing to estimates. It was our finance director's first year in preparing those estimates for the city of Brawley. And we were making really important progress towards those estimates and appeared to be definitely on track. In early spring, we had the opportunity to bring the audit, the prepared audit, before the council for acceptance, and we hit that milestone. Obviously, as the days continued from there and we began to grapple with the pandemic, we had to revisit some of the timetables for key meetings that drove a number of discussions that would allow us to present final numbers to you this evening. So in May and June, very focused discussions took place that were mindful of how COVID had perhaps changed our trajectory for the fiscal year and how it might affect future fiscal years, most importantly, that which we were planning for, which was 2020, 2021. We had an opportunity to walk through some of both the short-term changes and 12-month look forward that the planning process gave us. So In June, we were back in front of the council again, looking for input and guidance. And we know all these decisions are really, really challenging for the council to make, because they're all things that are really important to not only our leadership, but the community of Brawley. And we found ourselves a little behind schedule, 3 weeks behind with budget adoption due to some staff setbacks that we're very grateful to have got through. But we're here today with a budget for council's consideration for adoption. So I think one of the important things for us to never lose sight of is what the mission of our organization is and why we exist. We exist to provide service to our community of Brawley, and our mission is really focused on the highest level of service that we can possibly provide given the resources available. COVID really challenged us to do things a little bit differently, in that as we face the uncertainty in this fiscal year that ended June 30, we were really kind of in a heavy evaluation mode, how to preserve cash, how to best prepare for the uncertainty of what might lie ahead, and really begin this difficult job of sorting primary from secondary services. And I want to applaud the council. While those decisions were hard to make, I think it was very clear as we navigated COVID in the early weeks that it was key that we focused in on how important public safety resources were, and how water and sewer, those kind of very, very fundamental services, we confronted that those are really truly primary needs. And some of the secondary services, while extremely important to supporting quality of life, were not activities that were as critical as being able to dial 911 and get a response, or being certain that a water supply was safe, or sanitary sewer was properly managed. So we found ourselves, really needing to rely on these values as we face again, some really constrained resources. And our goal is always to operate as efficiently and effectively as we can, keeping in mind the city's long-term fiscal health. So while service level reductions are really hard to implement and disappoint the community that we serve, they are really the means to an end to long-term fiscal health, which is how we can best be certain to serve the needs of the community into the future. So, as the council knows and our community knows, we are operating today within the parameters of executive orders from the state of California, Office of the Governor, as well as our health officers' orders at the Imperial County level. This has greatly modified how we perform some of our city services, as well as how we use some of our properties in this period of the pandemic. When the pandemic was declared, we moved very rapidly to adjust some of the services we were delivering because they weren't compatible with the restrictions that were defined by the stay-at-home order. So what we naturally saw as a result of that was a reduction in the use of some of our city facilities that were tied to library and recreation services. And we also saw a reduced need to staff with personnel because they weren't delivering those services at this time. The facilities were in fact, closed to outside use. We have been very mindful of trying our best as a place of employment to ensure the safety of our essential workers, and to be certain that as they come into contact with the community that we serve, that we're also not exposing our community members to unsafe conditions. So COVID's really kind of pushed the envelope on how we think about delivering our services, how we protect the resources that we have, so that we can provide those continuous services that our residences and businesses depend on. Our city finance director did have an opportunity to weigh in and really provide some important revenue projections as the city moved along with cities across the state of California to understand how COVID actually will impact our revenue horizon, not only this fiscal year that ended June 30, but of course into the future. And as it stands, what's been built into this next fiscal year's model is an anticipation that among all funds, the city will experience a little bit over $500,000 in reductions in revenues that we would have otherwise received to deliver services in the city of Brawley. So I first want to talk a little bit about the library, and I'm going to ask that our library director join in on this part of the discussion as well. With the declaration of the emergency, it was important for the city to adapt to these restricted activities and look at the staffing for what remained of last year. And while we had all been optimistic and hopeful that we were going to see the restoration of certain types of activities throughout the community, from the business end of the spectrum through the public service realm, we haven't seen that progress with controlling the spread that has been part of defining whether more parts of the economy and community activity could resume. So as we prepared for this next fiscal year, what we have done is made some projections about what will be possible as of July 1, 2020 through December 2020. And at this time, we are assuming in the library realm that our facilities will remain closed to services through December 2020. And what this amounts to, in essence, are staff reductions that occurred in this prior fiscal year that have been named here on the slide. We had several LAMS staff, which is our staffed facility on wheels that visits preschools. Preschools have been closed due to the pandemic, so site locations have not been available for promoting early education and literacy. The remaining positions that show on this slide are the staff positions that are typically a part of our main branch and Del Rio branch location, and they are described generally as 2 permanent positions and 4 part-time positions. And these roles and what they are able to produce as programs have been a subject of a great deal of concern in the community, because the staff, when they're in those roles, are providing a very important service to residents of all ages. And it's clear that we've got some really important issues when it comes to literacy and education. Our library facilities are really seen as a place for people to access information and pursue knowledge. And so as the council has navigated this budget process, there have been quite a few comments that have come forward from both the leadership of our Library Board of Trustees as well as our community at large. And what I think is important to convey, at least as part of the budget discussion, is that all of these positions are planned to be restored as of January 2021, assuming that the governor's executive order and the health order for the County of Imperial supports the reopening of both preschool settings as well as library facilities. And with that, I'm going to just pivot away for a moment and allow for our library director, Marjo Mello, to weigh in on some of the activities that we will be implementing in this first half of the fiscal year as we try to get creative on what types of services might be possible while our doors are closed. And with that, I will hand off to Marjo.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you. Hi, Marjo.
I miss everybody, so this is nice to at least see you on a screen. Our curbside pickup program should be able to start in August, and the Brawley Library Friends have already given a check that will cover having a person work 10 hours per week to help accomplish that. So we're really looking forward to be able to start that. And like I said, they've already given me the check. I need to get it to Tyler. So that is really good news. What we're hoping to do is have 2 times a week where people can come and pick up what they've requested. And there's going to be a couple of ways people can request books. Our absolutely wonderful information services person, Armando Garabay, I know I'm butchering his name, is going to set up some forums that will be on the website and the hub where people can access the library catalog and request the specific books that they're looking for. And then, like I said, we'll have two slots of time a week where people can come and pick them up. And of course, we will use absolutely safe practices in getting the books, putting them together, and being able to get them outdoors to the person who's going to be picking them up. So we're really happy with that. The second thing is the Zip Books program. Zip Books is a state-funded program where people can request books that are not in the library. So if we do not own it, we can purchase it through Amazon and send it directly to the person's home, which is probably one of the really nice ways to circumvent COVID, because we don't ever touch the book. It comes from Amazon. So we're excited about that. That should be able to start up in August. Let's see. Literacy services we're excited about. We get grants from the California State Library. The amount that we're intending to get and that has been awarded pending approval of the state budget is adequate to cover someone half-time. And having been on multiple Zoom meetings, there are ways to offer one-on-one tutoring or small group tutoring using technology. We have laptops that we've gotten previously from literacy sources. We can check those out to people who are interested. The grant will pay for hotspots. So if we have someone coordinating, the people will still be able to get resources and improve their reading by working online. So we're very excited about that. Let's see, what's next? LAMS. We are really excited about LAMS. We're looking at a model where we can deliver materials to libraries who are also offering curbside and have people pick up the packets for their preschoolers. Or if a center is open, we can actually deliver packets and create the story times online so that the center can either broadcast it within, or the parents can get it through the hub or some other resource where they will be able to have those pre-literacy services. This is totally 100% grant funded. So I'm working with the commission, the Imperial First 5 Commission, in order to finalize what we're going to try. So we're looking forward to even trying to gear that up for September or October, because it is grant funded. Let's see. The last one is actually sounds like a lot of fun, and I've already had some volunteers, and it's called Local Readers. What we would like to do is record local people reading a book and broadcast it on the hub and put it on the website for the library. And again, Armando is going to be helping me set up how to use the cameras, how to upload it so that people can see those things. So we're looking forward to that also. So with the limited staff time that we have, we think that we can still have those great services.
Very
And
good.
all input and volunteerism is welcome.
Okay. I think we're very happy to hear that all these programs are actually going to come to fruition, and you saw the concern from the public. So I'm thrilled that you're able to get all of this in motion, Marjo. We appreciate it very much. Any questions from council for Marjo?
No
Okay.
questions.
No questions.
Thank
but
you, Marjo. We
Bye.
appreciate all the work.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. Keep us posted.
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
So included in this presentation today is really just 2 sets of staffing changes that are considered in the budget that's been prepared for council action. One is in the realm of the library, and the next is in the realm of our recreation department. Let's see if I seem to be, oh, there we go. Okay. So the other assumption that is built into the budget this evening is the planned restoration of the senior center coordinator position as of January 1, as well as the admin secretary that is housed within the Parks and Recreation department. And of course, this is with the absolute hope that as of January 1, senior center activities will resume, and we'll have the chance to have our senior center be the thriving and lively venue that it normally is year-round. So I wanted to just take a moment to emphasize that what will be included in this budget for action is those 2 roles returning to the recreation side of the Parks and Rec department. Okay.
And just a reminder too for the public and for everybody, I mean, this is a live budget. So if things change with respect to COVID and how, we're reacting to it within a city or the state government or federal government, things change within the city as well. So I think it's important that the public understands that as well.
So this, what this next slide aims to do is, with reference to all the changes that were mentioned from a library point of view and the Parks and Recreation point of view, we have done a deep dive into revenues and expenditures. The staff reductions that are a part of the first half of the year are not part of the second part of the year as described in these 2 prior slides. And when the model takes these 2 factors into consideration, where it has landed us is a gap in the general fund of about $100,000. And the reason, again, we're drilling down on this general fund is because it is the fund that has the greatest local discretion, but is unfortunately the most distressed of funds among those that the city has. So some other key features that I wish to be sure I note for the council is that voluntary contributions are not assumed in this 2020-2021 budget year. And so we would be notifying these 3 entities that we hope to contribute in future years, but unless the interest is in increasing the outside resources to offset the deficit, we aren't in a position to contribute this year. So as council is aware, we do have a general fund reserve, and based on past council action, the policy does call for a 15% set aside. The budget as prepared would require a set aside per policy of about $2.3 million. As presented this evening, what is assumed is not additional cuts to kind of regain that benchmark, but instead the cuts as described the first half of the fiscal year. And proceeding in that fashion, we land at what's projected at June 30, 2021 as a general fund reserve of $550,806. Included in the proposal this evening is to use highway relinquishment funds to kind of patch that $100,000 gap. And by doing so, we would have the opportunity to have a reserve that amounts to 3.5% of our operational revenues. Okay, so these next slides are meant to kind of provide a high-level review of priority projects this next fiscal year, and there are quite a few slides. I am going to try to move quickly through them, but if council has any desire to know more about these specific efforts, both myself and staff are available to answer those questions. So out of the general fund, there's only one project that is planned as a capital project, and that is the acquisition of a server, which is necessary for the city's proper information management. Under the gas tax, we have several projects that have been in the queue, but due to either other grant-sensitive time-sensitive projects have been a little bit lower on the priority list, but they are carried for this fiscal year. Those include the Plaza Safety Lighting Project, an air compressor, and flashing beacons to address the pedestrian crossing on Main Street. We also have a couple of capital projects that are supported by special law enforcement funds. One of them has been initiated, not yet completed, and that involves a significant upgrade to our radio communications system. And the next capital projects have to do with vehicles that are needed for our police department. What will now follow are a series of projects very familiar to the council because they absolutely reflect the priorities of the council in expressions of activities that should be front and center. So the first is our Allen Street project, which is currently underway. It has been carried into this fiscal year as we continue with both a water line replacement component as well as a street resurfacing effort. We next have Legion Road. As council knows, at the last meeting, council had the chance to award that contract for phase 2 of the Legion Road overlay project. And then immediately following that will be phase 3 going out to bid, which will take us to western city limits. The next grant-funded activities are described as 2nd Street from Malin to Cade. This is on the east side of Witter Elementary School. And also 8th Street from Rio Vista to Las Flores on the, that would be on the south side of where Stockman's is. And moving on to K Street from Highway 86 to 8th Street, we've got a design project funded with a later year to support the overlay project. And then these next 2 areas are in the vicinity of the Walmart area, generally speaking, Walmart, Malin Park, as well as Latigo Ranch. So we've got a grant-funded design project that's on Legion, extending beyond the current limits of that roadway. So the north half of that street on Legion, just beyond the AM/PM. And then we also have Western Avenue from Legion Street to Wildcat. It is authorized for design. That'll run the length of the retention basin behind Walmart and also abut the Latigo Ranch subdivision. And then we have a smaller project out of the Streets Fund that has to do with ADA improvements in the downtown core. And then moving on to development impact fee or capacity fee supported projects, we have Wildcat from Western Avenue to First Street. This is going to be of assistance to Latigo Ranch and improvements to circulation that aim to ultimately connect to the Dogwood Road / South Imperial Avenue roadway. And then we have a series of activities that are related to Wildcat reaching South Imperial Avenue / Dogwood, and they will allow for certain activities to be completed that are necessary to be addressed before the roadway can be put in. So we've got Best Canal undergrounding that are for portions of the Best Canal work that either represent our match with the IID project or expenses that the IID assistance won't cover, so it's as exclusions. And as brought to the council very recently, we also have some utility relocation that'll be necessary. Again, it's the things that are going on underground in order to allow for the above ground surface improvements to be performed so that Wildcat becomes a functional corridor. And then on to the water fund, we have a number of significant projects, and you can tell by the dollar values of these first three. These are features of our water plant, which, you know, I think many of our residents think is still very, very young, a young plant, but it actually is a plant that does require attention as features have met their useful life, and we're doing our part to make sure that we continue to provide safe drinking water to the public. And so we've got 3 key projects on the front end, as well as a number of additional projects that are necessary for the improvement of water quality throughout the water distribution system. And you'll see also referenced there, the Allen Street water line portion of that project currently underway is referenced at $222,000. And then under capital projects, we have a slew of what I would call kind of smaller projects, and then 2 that are significant. The most significant is within our facility, but also some aged manholes throughout our city limits that are in some of the oldest parts of town that do require address, and we're looking forward to improving some of those chronic troubled areas in a manhole rehabilitation project. And you'll also note very familiar projects throughout this slide that come to the council either annually with certain features that are necessary for the maintenance of our wastewater treatment plant. We've got also a number of efforts that are focused on keeping features outside of the boundary of the wastewater treatment plant operating as it should. So we've got 2 areas that regard lift stations in our city limits that we're going to be focusing on in this next fiscal year. And then last but not least, we do have a project that is authorized for the design phase to commence, and that is, you know, with outside assistance from the FAA. We've got reconstruction of runway 826 scheduled for this fiscal year as well. So at this point, staff and I are available to answer any questions that you might have on slides as they were presented this evening, or any other content that you might have some questions about in our worksheets or in the budget memo.
City Manager, before that, may I just add maybe a higher level 10,000 feet comment without diving down into the details of the budget real quick, if Madam Mayor, if you.
Yes, go ahead, Tyler.
So I think it's important in regards to the general fund to remember, refresh everybody's memory about certain what I call costs that are fixed, that really the city, while other than shutting everything down, really have that much control over. That would be like workers' comp, UAL, the pension obligation bond, debt service, insurance, that nature. Year-over-year increase for 2021 when you compare it to last year is $475 million. $475,000 increase just starting out of the gate. That's just from those fixed costs. When you combine that with our estimated COVID reduction of revenues in the general fund of about $375,000. We're talking right out of the chute, we're putting ourselves in a hole of about $849,000. And with the help of all the departments and staff and everybody, we really leaned up this budget. And as Rosanna had stated, we came in with $100,000 gap, $105,000 roughly. So it was a lot of hard work for everybody involved, all departments. But I think that's important to note, that those are some of the strains on the general fund budget.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler.
Thank you for that information. That's useful for us. I mean, it lays it down and quite honestly in layman's terms for us. Not that we don't get that, but I think for the public to understand as well. Thank you for that information.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. I know that we all know the workers' comp is a big one, and the pension obligation funds and the unfunded liability. But those are all things that a lot of people don't think about when they're looking at budgets. So that's an eye opener, definitely. It's a lot of money. Okay, any other questions regarding any of the detail that was shared by Rosanna, or any questions for Tyler?
I don't have any questions. I just make a statement. I thought we might be in worse shape than what we appear to be. I think that we're in pretty good shape overall, considering COVID and the other fixed costs that we have. It appears to me that the city staff has done a good job on developing the budget. It looks like we're in at least decent shape if things don't go bad on us any further than what they are. I want to be optimistic about it, and I think we can be with this type of budget. I do know it has an impact on service levels, but I'm not sure that we have, right now at this point in time, we don't have a lot of control over what we provide in services and what we don't. There's a few that we do control. There's a few that the state and the county are kind of controlling a little bit more for us. But I do think overall, I feel about as good as you can feel about this budget at this point in time. So with that said, that's the only statement that I really have to make.
Okay. Anyone else? So,
Madam Mayor, just comment again. It's Donnie. Quite a bit of work, and I'll probably have some. I think as Councilmember Nava mentioned, this is a living document. We're obviously going to probably in one shape or form have budget-related discussions, probably meetings moving forward, I'm sure. But I do want to comment again, really for the benefit of the public. Tremendous work on the side of staff during not only challenging times. At times we've been strained with just literally the anxiety of not knowing what the next day or next week is going to bring. So in light of all that, I really do applaud the work that several have done, but Rosanna and Tyler really leading the way here on bringing us to this this budget. No easy task, and I laud my fellow council members too. Not easy decisions. I think we're we've been prepared for the worst. I think that's part of what's here. But we're also kind of moving forward and certainly hoping for the best. So, as Councilmember Couchman said, I tend to think optimistically too, even though we've been hit with some, several over the years, sort of unbudgeted costs that have kind of come our way. But I think because we've always had a conservative approach and we work hard to balance the budget, even sometimes at the cost of services, we're doing the right thing for the city and doing the right thing for our community. So I want to thank everyone.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton. I concur. I think that, like you said, we've been conservative and it's all, some of it was not as bad as we expected. The revenues, they have dropped, but not to the extent I think that most of us thought that we were foreseeing a worse picture. So I think we still have a little bit of reserves, and that's always good to have a little bit of savings there. It's not a whole lot, but 550,000 is, or 3.5%. It's to the good. So that's what's important.
Madam Mayor, if I may make a comment on the reserve.
Yes.
and in the spirit of Councilman Wharton's comment about a living document, which the budget definitely is. It's strictly from a fiscal and financials perspective, ignoring the spirit of what the certain funds were intended for. And if you would recall from in April when our auditors were presenting the financial statements for the year before, they had expressed a concern on the reserve and in the future, the ongoing level of the reserve. I know our policy is about 15%. That is, in my mind, best practice. That is almost standard across the local agencies. There's some higher, some lower, but 15% is a good solid reserve. I think we need to have a goal to build up that reserve, some sort of plan. And there's one item that I would like the council to maybe chew on, think about, and if there are any questions on that this time, come back and maybe at a future meeting where we could maybe adjust the budget. And I'm talking about the reserve and using the highway relinquishment funds that are available for a portion to bring that reserve back up to within policy. And like I said, it's strictly from a financial reporting and the statements where if we're going to go out for financing in the future, the strength of the general fund is going to be imperative to be as strong as possible. We were right before the COVID hit. We were looking at refinancing some LTA monies, and I've talked to my contacts in the bond world and the investment world, and they do agree with me that while it's hard to quantify exactly how much savings there's going to be, but there's going to be some long-term savings and a benefit if there's any other potential financing projects that come up, if we have a strong general reserve along that 15% line. So if we consider that, there would be an adjustment if down the road when we review the budget again of say, right now the way the budget stands, about approximately $1.8 million to the reserve from the highway relinquishment. And I'm available for any questions to better explain if I wasn't clear on the thoughts of that.
If I could add a comment, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
So, no, thank you, Tyler, for that information. And we were in the process of essentially refinancing our bonds earlier. Once COVID came into play, that's track that progress. But I understand what you're saying with respect to essentially just almost a technical position, putting the money into the general fund. I think the concern is making sure that we're not utilizing those funds. We've been very good at making sure that we have not been doing that, and they've been set aside in a particular fund, for future purposes of roadway improvements and other things. Although we do have the discretion to use it in really any form that the council sees fit. my question would be, with respect to the general fund, is there a way to include it within the general fund so it's included to help offset or help strengthen our position there, but still protect those funds? Is there a way to create essentially a sub-account within the general fund where it still counts towards essentially reserves, but it's protected in a sense? Is there any way to be able to do that?
Yes, it wouldn't be in the sense that it's restricted, like the library money that's
Right.
there, but you could definitely have it as a set aside and designated in the financial statements where it'll show whatever that amount is, and that's set aside for streets projects.
I mean, we're doing that already, it's just not in that fund. So that
Right.
that could be something that if it helps us, it could be a benefit to us. So
I mean, in our
I've-
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Who had a
It
comment?
was just a question.
Yes,
Just
go ahead,
a
Don.
question. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it was just, Tyler, if we just bringing that up, is that something, is there a timing issue there or any recommendations for consideration for us? Is that's something we can contemplate at a future date?
Yeah, I think, give the council time to think about it and come up with any questions that they maybe not be thinking about right now, and we can address it at the next meeting or the meeting after. It's not imperative to make that decision right now, but I just wanted to throw that out there as a potential financial option for the general fund.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. I was gonna mention that in our resolution, it already states that excess reserves should not be used to replace ongoing general fund operating expenditures, new programs, or salaries and benefits. So we basically have that in writing already, that we wouldn't be using, the reserves for anything, would have to be something extraordinary. So I don't know if we would need to specify a little bit more if we did move some of that money into the general fund category.
I'm sorry.
Would that be like we would have to specify something a little bit more in writing if we move some of that money into our general fund?
Not necessarily through a resolution. It could go as easy as a budget adjustment with the direction of not restricted, but there's other terms for the level of availability, and I could present the options to you at a future date. But yeah, definitely, it would be through a budget adjustment type thing.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that, or we could just bring it back to Tyler at a future meeting?
I think we bring it back at a future meeting. I'm in agreement that we discuss that and make a decision on that.
Okay. Thank you, Tyler.
I think also it'd be nice to know what that total relinquishment fund is at when we bring that back for discussion.
I can give you the figure as it stands now. There's approximately $7.2 million in there.
Okay.
Available. We've used some of it for projects already. So.
Right, and then we closed a gap last at the last budget approval of 400 and something with that.
That was
That's
using
450.
Yeah,
that was interest.
earnings.
Yeah.
But that still would come off the balance. And that's estimated depending on where we end up. We're going to close the books here this next month, finalize the entries, and get prepared for the audit. So it has potentially to come in less than that, or if it's more, we wouldn't be able to move it over without any council action.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much on that. So we're at approving. We need a motion to adopt.
I will move to approve the budget as presented. This is Luke.
Okay. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Hamby.
I'll second it. This is Sam.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Couchman. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you so much for all the hard work.
Yes.
thank you, staff.
Thank you, Rosanna, Tyler, and everybody else, that all the department heads that have to give you input and make all these tough decisions. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on then to the next item on our regular business agenda is discussion and potential action to authorize the purchase of 5 RAS pumps at the wastewater treatment plant at the cost of $280,493.72 and approve that City Council Resolution number 2020, resolution of the City Council amending the fiscal year 2020-2021 city budget for wastewater treatment. And the backup is on pages 430 through 437. And we have Guillermo here to give us the details. Welcome,
Good
Guillermo.
evening. Hi. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Guillermo Sillas, Public Works Director. As describing the material, this item is related to 5 pumps that are required to do the recirculation of sludge and to be able to keep the concentration of the biomass and to be able to treat the water to the levels that are required by the regional board and the permit. And these pumps were included originally in this budget as a repair. Were not included in capital improvement projects because it was a regular rehabilitation. But when a technician inspected them, it was realized that these pumps are beyond repair and they are recommending the replacement. Since the 5 pumps are working alternating and 2 of them are beyond repair, it is believed that the 5 pumps are at the same condition. And usually the pumps, 3 pumps are continuously working. Right now we have 3 working with 2 down. If we lose 1 more, we will be in very bad shape, and that's the reason to accelerate, this project. And at the same time, we were able to get a good price from the distributor. Originally, they gave us a price that was about $50,000 in excess of the current quote, which is around $280,000. So by buying 5 pumps, they were able to reduce the price. And we are talking to them to try to expedite the process because the normal lead time is 16 weeks. So meaning that we will be 4 months in this situation.
Guillermo, thank you. Madam Mayor, I understand the urgency of the item and I understand we're in the need for them. So considering that, I'll make the motion to approve the item.
Okay, motion by
Second.
Councilman Nava, second by
Donnie.
Donnie. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed or abstentions? Okay, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, departmental reports. Update on the emergency construction project at the Brawley water treatment plant to replace the components of 2 sedimentation basins, presented by our Public Works Director, Guillermo. Yes?
Yes. Good evening again. Yes, this item has it's been continuously on an emergency. The plan is operating pretty much the same as the last report that I provided. We are still waiting for the last trough or the channels to be replaced. They were sent back to the manufacturer to open the holes in the right locations to be able to install them. And we are still waiting for them. The last communication from that contractor is that they will arrive by the end of this week. With that, it will take us probably 1 more week for the installation and adjustment, and that will be it for this project. But the plan is working properly, no concerns anymore. The main components were replaced, so we are in good shape for right now regarding the sedimentation basin.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
That was it took a long time to get there, but we're there, right? Thank you,
Yes.
Guillermo. Okay, moving on to informational reports. It's in your packet, the record of building permits for June 2020 is prepared by Oscar Escalante, our interim building official. And unless there's any questions, we'll move on. Okay. We'll go ahead and go to item 8 on our agenda, City Council member reports. And we'll go ahead and start with a Council Member Nava.
Just for the sake of time, everyone, I just want to thank you all, thank the public, thank staff for all the hard work. I'll save my comments for a future date, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, George. Council Member Couchman.
Okay, a lot of things have been happening around the city. I compliment the staff on getting the things done that they're getting done. Everything that I see when I drive around looks like they're working very, very hard and very diligently under some very trying conditions. Overall, I thought everything's been progressing pretty well. I haven't done a whole lot. There's been no, get-togethers. There's been none of that type of thing. I thought we got through fireworks pretty well. There's still some fireworks going off. I would encourage people to stop that. It's illegal fireworks. That they seem to be the main problem. I encourage people to stop setting them off, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning. It makes people very angry, and they get very, very angry. So other than that, I really don't have a whole lot to report. I communicate with many of the city employees as I travel around the city to Walmart, the Vons, to the different businesses. And then I also do a drive around, see what things are going on. Allen Street's progressing. And so with that, I'll just say thank you to all the city staff and the people of this city who are trying their best to go on with life in the way it should be. And that's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wharton?
I'm just referring to the comments I made during the budget. So at this, I have nothing further, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hamby?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have much to report. I fielded a few calls from people with some issues that I forwarded on to the city manager or proper departments. I've had appreciated some information that was shared by the finance director. Tyler has been very helpful through the whole process, and I commend him for his hard work as well as the rest of the finance department. It's just been I know it's been a nightmare to get through all the information that they had in front of them, and I am impressed with the fact that they got as far as they did this early in the year, and especially considering the hurdles that they had to jump. And I do appreciate all the departments for making the sacrifices that they've had to make to get us down to where our gap was very narrow. So I'm just hoping and praying for better days ahead for Brawley. This is just it's a very discouraging time for a lot of people, and the few bright spots that we've had in our community, I appreciate the people that have been working hard to make those happen. So I have nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you very much. I just would like to report that I continue participating in the conference calls with the county, led by our county CEO, along with Rosanna. We participate on a weekly phone call. Basically, it's a lot of the same information that we get from our fire chief, county updates on what's happening in different cities and in the county. We also participate on, they actually have them twice a week, the statewide Cal OES meetings, and they just bring us up to date on everything that's going on throughout the state as far as the billions of dollars actually that are being paid out, both federal and state funding, both in unemployment insurance and also in to small businesses. So the number of testing and any issues that they see out there, they share with us. And other than that, I just wanted to share, I didn't share it last week. I did make it out to Nyland and Calipatria to take a look for myself at the results of the damage that were done by that fire out there, and went and made some donations and provided some assistance. So the county has also provided us with a report. They're moving forward. They've cleaned it all up. They got some trailers for the people out there. They got like 30 some trailers. And right now they're staying at the Calipatria Inn and at the Brawley Inn, but they'll be moving into the trailers soon, is my understanding. So that they're moving on that really, really fast. So we're really happy to see how fast they're working on that for those folks that lost their homes. And the other thing is that we did get a phone call, and Rosanna may want to share a little bit more. I did get a phone call from Rosa Diaz, who's the local LGBT director, and she was looking for some guidance and direction for a peaceful demonstration that they want to hold in Brawley on August 1st for in remembrance of Nathan Casares, who suffered that tragic death on July 13th. And so Rosanna and our interim chief, have been working with her also on the planning for that. So Rosanna, I don't know if you have anything else that you'd like to share in regards to that.
We have had an opportunity to confer with the health department, as well as guide the organization through the facilities use application process. So we're anticipating that the event will take place the evening of August 1st from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. As it stands, we haven't received the actual application form in yet. The current venue requested is the Kiwanis kiosk in North Plaza Park. And so once the app comes in, we'll know a little bit more about the configuration that they have in mind. The current goal is to walk from the site at roughly Palm and East Main, along Main Street on the sidewalk to North Plaza Park, and then basically convene with social distancing and face coverings within the area around the kiosk. There will be a sound system and possibly some form of a photo montage or some type of visual component. And the goal of the program is to promote greater awareness of transphobia and seek justice, as they describe, based on what's known at this point about what occurred. So,
okay, thank you, Rosanna. And other than that, the only other thing is that I do receive regular reporting also from Mexicali, and they, I guess on the weekend basis, I just received a report today that on the 24th through the 26th, they do the checks at the port of entry for masks, no COVID symptoms. They only allow 2 individuals per car, and they check to make sure that the people that are crossing are going for essential business, and they're only allowing whatever their guidelines are for alcoholic beverages. And if those rules are not followed, they are imposing fines. So that's effective the 24th through the 26th, in case you're planning on making a trip to Mexicali. Okay, that was my report, and we'll go ahead and move on then to the city manager report. Rosanna?
thank you, Mayor. One additional item of note for council and community is discussions have progressed quite a bit with the County of Imperial, Public Health Department, as well as local agencies about launching a Keep It Moving campaign. And this will be kind of a way of messaging safe activity that can occur during park closures. So we have made, I think some significant headway in advocating for the use of public rights of way, whether those are sidewalks or bike lanes within our city facilities or at the edge of our city facilities. And I am going to be working along with Marjo and Parks and Rec personnel to update some of the signage. It is really important that we continue to emphasize that no social gathering, use of playground equipment, the things that would involve potential for spread, that we're deterring that kind of activity. But the notion of solo walking or running or active movement in a city park is something that will be allowed and promoted. So looking forward to sharing with all of you what that Keep It Moving campaign will look like. I think there's a couple of efforts that are underway being led by Lindsay Dale and Gil Rebelar that will not only do some kind of fun and playful messaging, but also some video components as well about how to promote courtesy when you're in the vicinity of others, pulling up your face covering as you approach. There's a little bit of variation among cities about the use of face coverings and whether or not they're required in city facilities, but the kind of overwhelming consensus is that the basic courtesy needs to be there, and that's something we can all embrace and promote.
Can I ask a question, Roseanne? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but with respect to parks being open, are we the only city that's not allowing walking at the parks at the moment?
George, we have not done any additional messaging. All that's stated is the same original signage. So
but are we the only city that's not allowing that?
No, we're the only city that has signage up and I guess talked about not allowing it.
Okay, so we are the only city, yeah.
I'm not sure I would describe it that way. Calapat says their parks are closed, but nobody's going out there to use the enforcement action except as it relates to gameplay occurring, where there's sport and interaction. So there's a lot of variation among the cities and the county.
I just want to be clear, though, if people are going to be out there, let's just promote that idea sooner than later. If they're going to be out in the parks and they're going to be walking amongst others, then let's promote that idea sooner than later than wait for the county to say, like, hey, there's this campaign. Well, let's just tell the public now. Let's emphasize the fact that, hey, keep your distance, keep walking, don't gather. I think it's the sooner we implement that, the sooner we say it, it just makes it easier for everyone. Just my point of view.
Happy to pick it up now that the budget's adopted. And the last meeting was just yesterday afternoon. So was in touch with Parks and Rec staff this morning regarding signage changes and can pivot off to do that later this week.
Okay. Thank you. I think that would be a welcome thing by our citizens. And like Rosanna said, I think that people are, if they are walking, nobody's telling them anything. I mean, we're not enforcing anything. So, but it would be a lot nicer for them to feel comfortable walking their dogs and stuff. So,
yes.
Thank you. Okay, is that it, Rosanna?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do we have anything from our city attorney? Bill? You're muted.
Not till closed session.
Okay, thank you. Anything from our city clerk?
No, she does not have any items.
Okay, well, that concludes this part of our meeting. We're going to go ahead and go into our closed session. Thank you all out there for listening to our meeting, and if you have any questions, you know where to get a hold of us. Be more than happy to answer any questions. And the rest of our council will talk soon. Thank you.